Welcome to CreatureGeek, the special effects makeup podcast from the fan and pro perspective. I am Len Peralta.
And I'm Frank Ippolito.
And this is another solo cast. We don't have a guest this week, but
not for lack of trying. Like,
yeah.
we have a laundry list of people like 100 miles long that want to jump on the podcast.
Yeah, and sometimes it's nice. We've mentioned this before, just to kind of catch up. And it's been a busy month or so here.
It's been a busy couple of months, really.
Yeah,
I've been jamming a lot with a bunch of different video game clients. I have 5 different video game companies doing projects in the back of the shop right now.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
A bunch of stuff's
terrific.
getting ready for E3. One thing just went up on the internet just the other day, which would be like a week ago for you guys. It was a League of Legends competition. I made this big giant gold trophy for it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Post a picture of it somewhere. So yeah, we've been jamming a lot of fun stuff for E3. A lot of cool things I've been bidding on that chances are I'm not going to get, but some of the artwork I'm seeing for these things that are going to pop out at E3 are going to be pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. It has been a busy couple months because you've also moved shop. The last time I think we did one of these solo casts, you were in the midst of moving shop, and now you're completely moved in. And
completely is kind of a relative term. I don't know that I'm ever going to be full. Like, by the time I was fully set up in the last shop, I moved. So like the shops are always like a work in progress. I've been in here for about 3 months now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things we did when we moved in was we put up this mezzanine with all the storage and stuff like that. And when Tested did their kind of video tour, for some reason the internet like fixated on not having railings on my mezzanine yet. Guys, when I just got in, like, why are you fixating on that?
When I came out there, I thought the exact same thing. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, someone's gonna tumble and kill themselves there. But yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress.
It's also storage. It's not like it's a workspace. Like, people.
Yeah, But if you don't, but it would be scary if something happened, and
I agree. And every time people go up there, like, I usually try and be the one that goes up there, because if I fall, I'm not going to sue myself. My insurance on this place only goes so far.
Yeah. So so as you mentioned, Tested did a nice little video.
We gave a quick little shop tour. There's so much stuff in here that we didn't like cover everything. We didn't cover all the tools. We didn't cover all the safety things I have, but we got some highlights. Got my new Bridgeport, got my new universal laser, got, some of the things. Actually, I just went up to San Francisco and picked up a vacuformer.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Adam Savage has a 2x3 foot vacuformer in his shop. And he's like, hey, you want a vacuformer? Yeah. So this past weekend I had to go up to the Bay Area for a wedding. And I drove my van and picked up a vacuformer.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, that'll be a huge boon for you, I would think.
It's a nice another piece of equipment and another tool for me to do things. I think Adam, his shop is so small and he uses that vacuformer so rarely. It's kind of ridiculous to have something with that big of a footprint that you don't use that often. So
right.
He has keys to my shop and I have keys to his. So if he ever needs to use this thing, he could. I mean, if he's in town, he can use it. Or if he needs me to run a part for him, like, who cares?
So what would you use that vacuformer for? Like, what kind of projects would you want?
Well, I think that we're going to be using it on this build for the Martian spacesuit that we're doing. Adam and I are replicating the spacesuits from the movie The Martian, the one with Matt Damon that Ridley Scott directed. Blah blah blah.
Right.
But the company FBFX built these things, and they're really cool. And we got the chance to kind of take them apart and look at them and everything. So we're, I'm kind of tinkering on all the parts. I gotta build. There's so much stuff to do.
Yeah. That's a pretty smart way of making things really, really quickly that are lightweight but look heavy. So
yeah, I think maybe some of the backpack will be, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to be using it for the visors.
Right.
Making the clear domes. There's a couple of companies that do really good, like, clear vacuform domes and stuff like that. But I'm gonna give it a shot doing it on this machine. So we'll see.
That's awesome. Now you mentioned you've been busy. And we talked a little bit about this when I was out in LA for Monsterpalooza, which we'll talk a little bit about later.
Yeah.
But I've seen some of your rants on Facebook in the recent weeks. And
well, the past couple months I've been, usually when I kick off on the internet, it's not like just sitting there like whining like wah, the world sucks wah. I try and compose these rants in an educational form. Like, okay, guys, here's the things I'm banging my head against the wall about, and it's typically business stuff.
yeah.
And so here's what I'm having a problem with, and here's kind of how my solution is.
Okay, so this is the beginning of kind of Frank rant here.
Frank rant, yeah.
Which,
it seems like every time we have a solo cast, it's usually me ranting about something.
Yeah, but what is interesting about this topic is that I want to hear what you have to say, but I have a feeling that we'll kind of fall on the same area because I run my own quote unquote shop, if you will, here by myself. So I think we deal with the same sort of issues. But why don't you go ahead and start, and we'll.
Well, I think that anybody that's a freelance artist or a small business or a big business, who cares, like has problems with the business end. Like the first rant that I put up, and I put these up in note postings on my Facebook page.
Right.
And the first one was about bidding on stuff. I had a couple of clients in a row like ask about like prices of how much things cost.
Right.
These were specifically specialty costume stuff. And when you start quoting numbers for how much things cost, people go, oh, that much? I didn't think it would be that much.
Right.
And they were like, well, we were thinking more like this. And it's like a third or a fourth or a tenth,
Yeah.
And it's like just figuring out how to bid on stuff. And so I like, when people are unrealistic about prices and stuff, like I just don't do those jobs. Like you just can't. I'm not like,
sure.
If something's going to cost $1,000 and they're like, well, I got $50. I'm sorry. I'm not your guy. Like, go find someone else. I'll try and be nice about it for the most part. But,
yeah,
when you're trying to calculate how much to charge on something, you have to think about your materials, your overhead. When you think about your overhead, it's your rent, your electric, your utilities, your insurance, all that stuff.
Crew, if you have to bring somebody else in.
Yeah, labor for it, like what's your payroll going to be? So materials, labor, overhead, like all those things, like how to calculate that, how to estimate materials, how to estimate your time, and how to build in a profit margin. Because if you don't have a profit margin, you're just doing it and you're only paying your bills. Like the company has to make money so that the next job that comes in, they're like, well, we have to, you can't get your check for 2 weeks because that's the way the accounting is. You're not shit out of luck. But then my second rant, that was the most recent one, was this general accounting principles, which makes me want to like pull out all the heads of every accountant ever.
Right. Right. But before you go on, this is interesting because even though this isn't really about special effects makeup, this is a part of what you have to know if you want to go into this sort of business, right? I mean,
we've heard people like touch on it before. Everybody's like, oh, be inspired and try hard and practice and blah blah blah. But you have to be a good business person, and it's really really hard because most of us are like we're idiots. We're dumb artists that just want to like build stuff.
Right. Well, it's you just have to learn on the job, which is means you get burned.
Well, yeah, and I still get screwed every once in a while. But then my most recent one was this like perfect storm of like giant checks being late.
Right.
So like like if a company's like, we'll get you that $1,000 in a couple of weeks, I don't care,
Yeah.
But when it's like tens of thousands of dollars, like my business is not large enough that I can float
sure,
tens of thousands of dollars. So like when they're late a week or 3 days, like that's not easy. Like I don't know very many companies that are of my size. Like I'm a relatively small company, but like I don't know. I mean, like there's bigger shops that could probably float that, but that's tough.
Let me ask you something. Like, do you usually ask for a deposit, a down payment, a part of that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the contracts and the negotiations, like the worst part of doing business is figuring out all of that stuff. And I have really good business manager that really helps me wade through the contracts. And usually, like if it's under 10 grand, I want it all up front because it's just like, what are you gonna do? Like fiddle around with $5,000 here and $5,000. Like, no, if it's under 10, I want it all at once. If it's over 10, I prefer usually to split things into thirds because you need your startup to like get moving.
Right.
Usually about halfway through the job, you're like, all right, I need some more money.
Right.
And then at the end, if you do your math right, like that last check, even if they fuck you, that's like your profit and your like gravy. So that can kind of wait, but you just don't want to be like out of pocket. So the past couple of jobs, they've kind of browbeat me down into 50-50s. So I float half of the job, and they get half the job, and then I got to float the other half of the job until they decide to pay.
Yeah.
And some of these, it's like, the first one was like 5 days late, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. And then the most recent one, which actually the check just showed up today.
Oh, awesome.
Is like 16 days late, and it's a lot of money. So like, and again, like 9 times out of 10, when I have people working for me, when they bring me an invoice, they're like, hey, here's my invoice. And I cut them a check right on the spot because I don't want people to have to wait. There's no reason that somebody should have to wait to get paid. But this time I had to wait. Like I had to ask 3 guys to wait. And I'm like, hey guys, I hate doing this, but can you wait like until this check comes? And it's like a week and a half, and which isn't ridiculous. Like in the big picture of waiting for a check, like waiting a week and a half isn't like I'm a monster, but I hate doing it because I hate when companies do it to me, and I hate having to do it to somebody else. But it trickles down. So these giant companies that have more money than God are making the little guys wait, which trickles down to the little guys, not little, but all the other guys.
No, right. It goes all the way down.
So painful. Like it's painful for me to have to ask my artists to wait.
Yeah.
And but again, it was like this perfect storm of being owed way too much money. And
like you said, like I said, it's sort of the only way you're going to learn how to do this stuff is by getting burned and realizing that that you have to learn these things. You have to know how to do these things. I mean, when I started my company, and it's a little bit different than yours, obviously. It's I do graphic design, I do illustration, things like that. And but it's not that much different. I mean, you have more hard costs as far as labor and materials and things like that, whereas my stuff is more just kind of like me, right?
Yeah.
But I'm also
but that doesn't deter from what your time is worth. Like it doesn't matter if it's just you sitting there drawing on a Cintiq or me with a giant shop full of people. Like we're all due the money, and it's all whatever. And I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, it's just one of those things where it's like, you do what you have to do sometimes, it's like, I've taken many jobs where, I've been very, very lucky. Recently I've been very, very lucky to work with people who are like either 15 or even less than that to turn around. Yeah. And that's great. If you can get a relationship with a company like that. But I guess, when you're dealing with that much money with a big company like that, it just sort of sucks to know that like the bigger companies don't want to work with you.
Not all of them are horrible. Like there's a lot of like really, really big companies that are great to work with, and I have like zero problem with when it comes to their accounting and their check turnarounds. And a lot of them are really good. Like, hey, this is a rush job, so we're gonna rush your check. Cool, like that's great. And most of the time I don't have to worry about these final checks. Like they either give them to you on delivery or this or that. But this time I was like, this company's fine. Like these guys are so easy to deal with. I don't need to like be a dick about it. 9 times out of 10, I say, well, when I deliver the thing, you have to hand me a check.
Right.
Like, and that's what I usually do. And this is one of those times where I'm like, these guys are fine. I'll get my check in a couple of days. It'll be cool. And they were like, it's like 2 to 3 weeks. What? That's not what the contract said.
No.
Contract says on delivery. Invoice says on receipt. Like, it's like, how does that transfer into like net 30? Like, you're crazy.
So let me ask you something. So you had mentioned you have a business manager. Yeah. And that's something that I don't have. I do all my accounting on my own, which is, I've thought about bringing someone in like that. So let me ask you some questions, because this is good. When did you decide to bring in a business manager to start to handle your affairs like this? At what point?
Well, the business manager I use, she handles mostly my contracts and stuff like that. Like she doesn't handle my day-to-day like bookkeeping, though I am getting to the point where I need a bookkeeper to manage like day-to-day stuff. Because like even today, like I've done one thing in the shop today, and it's 5:45 at night. Like I've cast one rubber part. You know, it's a good thing I got people back there that are awesome, and like, but like with all the running around and you know handling emails, I got 4 or 5 jobs floating around, and so I'm constantly like
Yeah,
shuttling these things. I just put in a bid on some gorilla suits. Like there's all kinds of cool stuff floating around.
sure.
Um, so anyway, so yeah, I need somebody to start doing the accounting and stuff. Like I use like the QuickBooks online stuff, and that
Yeah.
keeps me pretty organized.
But I guess
And
at what point did you decide like, oh, this is getting out of my control? Like I can't. I
well, anytime it's a larger job or something that's like movie or TV or commercial, like when it's dealing with that stuff, and then these bigger jobs with the video game companies, like I have her look over the contracts to make sure that there isn't like language in there that makes me liable for something ridiculous.
sure, right.
And make sure that she can speak legalese to their
Okay.
lawyers so that they don't, like, if I'm like, hey, change this, like lawyers are like, nah, 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 we
Right,
can't
right, right.
change that. But if we get like red line documents, and then they're like, oh, you got somebody that knows, and
Like
then they work with you a
how
little
did you
easier.
find this person? Were they a friend? Were they someone that you've worked with
I've
before,
been
recommended?
I've been working with her on and off since I think like 2003 or something like that. I was
Okay.
referred to her by, I believe, Todd McIntosh. He's a makeup artist. She
That's cool.
also handles people like Kevin Haney and Greg Canham and the Westmores, and
That's cool.
like she handles a lot of makeup artist industry people, and like my accountant people, like they handle a bunch of like movie and TV industry stuff. So out here it's like easy to find those kind of people that really specialize in like these things. Like there was a couple of times like I gave a contract to like our family lawyer back in Ohio, and he's like, oh yeah, it looks great.
Right.
Yeah, you're fine, like whatever. And then I showed her the same contract, for another project. She's like, oh, we need to change all kinds of stuff, like
Yeah.
you're gonna be liable for this, and like blah blah blah. So
So yeah. So it was one of these things where she was recommended to you,
yeah,
and it's just sort of you bring her in when you need to. She's
yeah,
not on
but
every single thing, but you bring her in when you need to.
yeah, and because it costs money. So if it's like a
Right.
$1,000 job, it's ridiculous for me to spend money
Sure.
on her to do like a tiny little project. But if it's usually it's the ones that are over 10 grand, I'll bring in her. But like things are getting so busy that like I kind of just need to have somebody else doing that. And a lot of the
Right.
bigger shops, like they have accounting departments and coordinators and all
Hmm.
kinds of stuff that do all these jobs, but like I'm one dude running a shop of like
Right.
5 to 15 people. Like it's
No, you had mentioned you were like when you were saying what your day was like today, you only got to mold one thing, and the rest of your time was spent answering
yeah.
emails or working out contracts and stuff like that. That is,
It's kind of like what Jose was saying. Like he spends less time actually doing the things and more
yep,
time, coordinating, where he doesn't get to sit down and sculpt as much maybe. But that's the give and take. Like if you want to
right.
just, like be like, I don't know, somebody that just does everything themselves, like you have to take in less work, and you have to like make clients wait, or you can't take commissions for months and months because you're only like one person. But
Right.
once you start, managing people, I have a great artists and awesome friends that are really good and adaptable to things. Like they get to pay them some money, and they get to do stuff. And I have enough people that rotate around that like if my buddy Steve is busy this weekend, then I could bring in Nick. And if Nick's like I just I got all these people that just kind of float around, so that way they could still do all their freelancy stuff.
That's awesome.
um
No,
no, it's nice, but
I know
sometimes just the business end is so disheartening, and it's just
yeah.
so deflated, and then I don't know if this compounds, or if this is if there's any correlation in any of this stuff. But when I'm having such a hard time with these dumb companies and their finances, which cause stress on me, then I start getting super insecure about stuff. Like,
Right.
and I've had this conversation with a couple of like pretty high profile. I don't want to like get into names because it's a little bit kind of personal. Some
Right.
pretty high profile like people that build, like people that are very like big makers.
Sure.
And we all seem to have this like it's like imposter syndrome. Like we get to the point where we're like, I don't even know what I'm like. I don't deserve to be doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing this. Why does anybody like pay me to do these things?
Yeah.
I can't figure anything out. And you just have this like mental meltdown. You're just like, I suck. Why do I have a company? Like, why I don't deserve any of this stuff.
That is, I think, just the bane of being a creative person. I don't know. I mean, what you're speaking about on your end is exactly what I deal with on my end as an artist, as an illustrator, as a graphic designer. I don't know how many times I've had these conversations in my head where I'm like, God, I totally suck. This is the worst. I'm going to fail. I'm going to let down my family. This is going to be the worst thing ever. And, and then something sort of happens where it's like, it's cyclical. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think you just have to go through this. It's just sort of like you're resetting yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it takes one good project to like be like, all right, I'm fine. Like usually I start feeling really bad, and then I go do a tested video. Like I just did a tested project this weekend when I was up in the Bay. Whenever I go up to the Bay Area, I always like do as many things as I can. So it was a wedding, picking up a vacuum former, and then shooting some stuff to test it. And that stuff usually resets me. I'm like, oh, all right, I know what I'm doing. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not just me and you, and it's not like everybody has these insecurities. And I guess it never clicked until just recently that like everybody has these meltdowns, and I was like, oh, I'm not the only one that like hates myself and hates all of my work and thinks that I'm like, oh, all right.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I'll get compliments from people on my art, and I'm thinking, you don't know what you're talking about, man. This is like, I'm like the worst. But I'm not saying that to them. I'm just like, oh, that's the way I feel. But it's one of those things where every creative person, I think, has to go through this gauntlet of how they.
And that happens like kind of regularly. Like, it's not even like, oh, it's like, once you get through it, you're fine. It's like, no, it just sneaks up on you like all the time.
Oh my god!
It always happens when like everything hits at once, like when bank accounts empty and arguing with your girlfriend and like all this stuff, and you're like, oh my god,
gosh. Well,
I'm not arguing with my girlfriend.
No, try raising a family off of this, and you're like, this is all we have. I'm going to totally let everybody down. It's a huge amount of pressure on you.
I think I've even Twittered this a couple of times about CreatureGeek. Like every time we finish recording, I'm like, oh god, I shouldn't even be talking. I don't know why I'm recording anything. I'm just babbling, and it's gonna suck. Like like tonight, as soon as we're done recording, I'm gonna go back in the shop and sit down and be like, oh god, why did I say that? Nobody's gonna listen after this episode.
No, it's funny because and this is a good segue into LA and Monsterpalooza. Is that this
we suck? Thanks, Monsterpalooza.
No, not that we suck, but I'm just saying that we. It's sort of what I'll say about CreatureGeek, and I'll just say about the show is it's so unpredictable. When I was out in LA. I was really taken aback by a couple things. First off, just the amount of love and that we have for this show. There are people who are like, I mean, more than once, you're like, oh, this guy wants to come by. He wants to meet you, and I'm like, he wants to meet me. Why? Because you're the co-host of this show.
The guys from Skull Shop.
From Skull Shop, your friend. Oh my gosh, I can't remember.
Mikey Rotella.
Mikey Rotella, right?
Yeah, he said that we're doing the Lord's work. That was his quote to me once.
It was just really cool, And then the other thing too, I was hanging out with you on Friday. We were walking around the show, and then the amount of love for you, Frank, which was just really, really cool. I mean, everybody. I mean, you kept stopping. You knew everybody. It's sort of like a little family. It was really cool to run into all these different people from the show. Mike Hill.
Yeah, but for every little bit of love that you see, I see the like 80 people that are giving me dirty looks. like LA or this industry or all this stuff, like any subculture.
Right,
like,
exactly.
There's so much like jealousy and horseshit and backstabby hatred, shit talking, blah blah. Like I mean, shit. How many times do I shit talk about Glenn Hetrick or Michael Key? Like, I'm not. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, that's once again goes back to being a family. I mean, it's that those kind of dynamics happen in any small group of people. So it's not surprising to me. But I would say it was an amazing trip. It was so totally unexpected. I had gone in not really knowing what to expect from Monsterpalooza. I didn't know if it was going to be kind of like this little tiny thing where you kept running into the same three people and then everybody's real depressed. But it was really a cool show, and it was a really great trip. It was a great location.
Yeah,
And it
I
was
hope that they keep the big Monster Palooza there in Pasadena.
Oh,
And then,
it was an incredible area. It was so
yeah,
cool. And I stayed right behind in the Sheraton over there, which was really convenient. And it was just beautiful. Some really great moments from Monster Palooza. Well, the whole show was just really cool. There were a couple really key moments that stood out to me. One of them was obviously running into a lot of the people that we've had on the show before, meeting Shannon Shea in person, meeting Steve Johnson in person, Mike Hill I mentioned. But one of the coolest ones was on Saturday. I was walking around and I was with my friend Greg Benson, who was filming for his channel Mediocre Films,
mhm.
and he actually knew Matt Winston and went over to talk to Matt Winston. So we went over there. I just happened to be my Matt, and then I stopped Matt and I said, "Hey, you know this guy?" Referencing Greg, and he's like, "Len," like he remembered me, and he also remembered, and I won't divulge it on the show, but he remembered my original first name, my real first name, which was like, oh my
You're gonna have
gosh,
to go. I mean, people are just gonna have to go look at the Matt Winston
you're gonna have
episode.
to
And
listen to the Matt Winston episode to
yeah,
hear it, because Matt Winston was the one who outed my real name on the show. But that was like a huge. I was so just blown away that Matt Winston remembered me. That was the one thing, and that he remembered that little detail, which was so cool.
yeah. No, Matt's a nice guy. I mean, like he's got I think the community's best interest in mind.
Oh,
I mean, obviously he's running a business, but I mean, I think that it's done out of the right perspective. Some people are running a business because they want to make money and want to like stick it to somebody.
sure.
But I think Matt and that whole Stan Winston School crew, they do this stuff out of like love for the community and love for sharing this information, and it's important to them that you know. So yeah, they pay attention, of course.
Well, that meant a lot to me, as far as I felt like, because on my role on this show as the fan is sort of removed from the industry portion of it. So I'm sort of listening a lot. So the fact that I'm accepted like that was really, really cool. And it said a lot to me, and also just about the industry in general. It's such a great, cool, inviting industry. It's very, very neat.
Yeah, and hanging out with Shannon Shea was fun. He's
Oh,
a hoot.
Shannon is
I
great.
love Shannon.
I had my second little story about Monster Palooza, and I don't think I've talked about it on the show, but I know I talked to you about it. I was hanging around on Sunday morning with George from Immortal Masks,
Hmm.
and we were just sort of chatting before the show started, and he said, "Oh, by the way, J.J. Abrams is hanging around here." I said, "Oh, really? That's really cool. Yeah, yeah, because it was neat because." The show is small enough that you can run into people, like there was Guillermo del
Hmm.
Toro was there on Friday.
Yeah.
So J.J. Abrams just happened to be around there, and so George and I were talking, and as I was talking to George, right behind him comes J.J. Abrams, and George goes, "I gotta go," because he wanted, he had to, I go, I got it, he wanted to
Yeah.
go talk to him, and I'm like, that's fine. So I sort of wandered away, and I'm like, I don't want to be that guy, right? That like bothers him. But then I'm like, well, how often is this going to happen? It's like before the show, there really wasn't anybody around. So I went back, and he was with his son, and then he had some muscle with him. And
Mhm.
so I tapped on the muscle shoulder. I said, "Hey, do you mind if I get a picture of Mr. Abrams?" He's like, yeah, you got to be quick though, because we got to get out of here before the show starts. So yeah, I handed him the phone, and then I tapped on Mr. Abrams' shoulder. I said, "Mr. Abrams, can I get a picture?" He's like, yeah, sure. So I took this picture, which was really, really super cool. No, I said, "Can I take a selfie with you?" And then the guy took the pictures. I shook his hand, and then J.J. Abrams says to me, "Well, technically, it wasn't a selfie." I said, "Oh, yeah, because this guy took it." And then we took. So he actually made. So that was a pretty cool moment.
How cute.
It was a really cool moment. One of those. It was one of those moments if I go to a con and I have a moment like that where I can just my mind is blown, it's a successful con. So that was Monsterpalooza was successful for a variety of reasons, that being one of them. And it was great. I hope people enjoyed the two live shows we did out there. I think they turned out
it was
great.
cool. I mean, even though Tom was kind of in and out quick because he had to get back to signing autographs and junk. It was still fun to like hear some of those silly stories from him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was definitely still is one of my idols growing up. Watching horror movies and things like that. So it was cool to have him be a part of the show. We got to get some more. We made so many contacts there, or I did at least. I mean, you knew a lot of people there, but it'd be great to get.
Yeah, there's tons of people that are going to be on the podcast coming up. Like, I still have to schedule Rick Baker. Like Rick gave me his email address, so I gotta figure that one out.
And Michael Westmore, of course.
Mike Westmore said that he was going to come on. I introduced you to him. That was fun.
Yeah.
Just last week we had Kirk Thatcher on from Henson.
Yep. Yeah. Kirk Thatcher was at Monsterpalooza as well. So very, very cool stuff. This is sort of an interest. We don't do many of these introspective episodes about the show, but this is one of them. And it's sometimes I think it's good to kind of do a State of the Union.
Oh, I wanted to get my buddy Jeff Levine. He said that he would be on. He is a producer. That he produced Slither and Haunting in Connecticut, and Haunting in Georgia, and like all that stuff. But I'm gonna get him in there to talk about when he made Shadow of a Vampire and kind of forcing that into existence. And I want to talk a little bit about like kind of more of the big business end of filmmaking. Like we talk about our independent stuff, little small business and stuff like that. But the business end of filmmaking is often kind of, people have like, they assume they know how it all works. And, I think we've talked about it before, like even whenever it was on about, how tax credits, alter where things are shot and how, how they make films. So we'll talk to him about that. I don't know. Yeah. Lots of fun stuff.
Yeah. So great. Are you, do you feel pretty good about yourself now, Frank?
I'm okay. Like Czech showed up today. I had a good weekend. Like I said, whenever I shoot with Tested, that kind of resets me whenever I start feeling bad about myself. Everything's going good. Like, I don't have any hiccups with the projects in the shop. Like everything's like going smooth. Like all the people that are working for me, they're all awesome. And so I have no problems there. So no, I'm all right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you if you're listening to this show and you're thinking about maybe breaking out and starting your own business, whatever it is,
or if you're doing stuff and you're thinking that you suck, just remember that everybody all the way up to the top, the best people up there, they all have this imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the greatest people that you wouldn't,
you wouldn't assume. Are insecure about their artwork. This is a great story. It's sort of not. It's not really about insecurity, but it's about perception, I guess. As many people might know, I'm an artist. I'm an illustrator. I'm a cartoonist. I was very, very fortunate at one point to be able to see some original Bill Watterson artwork. Bill Watterson does Calvin and Hobbes, or did Calvin and Hobbes. One of the most influential comic artists to live. He lives right here in Ohio. I was actually able to go into his home, see some original artwork on the wall. And what was amazing to me, and I always tell artists this, go and look and see how things are done. We say this a lot on the show, because of course you just want to see how things are built and how things are done. If you're an artist, go see as much original artwork by your favorite artist as possible. Because when I went to go see this Bill Watterson piece, what threw me off completely is that he had whiteout all over some of these pieces. Like he had made mistakes. And to me, as an artist, it just blew my mind, because I just always figured that Bill Watterson, it was just perfect straight out of the gate. He was always perfect. And to see that he had made mistakes gave me some confidence as an artist. It is like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to screw up. It's okay. You can fix it. And so to see one of my idols who was able who was fixing mistakes he had made,
gave a lot of confidence to me. So I always tell it's more about perception. It was perception that he was just this incredible person straight out of the gate, when really he's just like me. He's just like you. He's just like everybody else. And he is feeling his way through this whole creative process. And I think that's important to remember when you're creating anything, is that things don't just appear. They're there after years and years or months and months of all kinds of experimentation, things like that. So that there's a little takeaway for the show.
Yeah, there you go.
Just something,
So we started doing video
yes.
a couple weeks ago. The first one with Jose and
with Kirk.
And then Kirk. And I gotta say, we are not gonna look at any YouTube comments at all. At all. We're throwing the video up there just because people have asked, and because it's, whatever. I found a program that's really easy. I just press a button and it records both of our Skype feeds, and then that's it. And then we throw it up. Who cares about lighting or camera angle or blah blah blah? You want video? Here it is.
I think a lot of people were thinking with video that we'd be able to show what the person was talking about. We're not at that phase yet.
No, that's so much time in editing and looking up stuff. Like, if somebody out there wants to do it for us and wants to do it for free, sure, we'll
or go to the Patreon and get us to that level, and we'll be able to pay somebody to do it.
But it's just it's for free, guys. It's for free. Quit
I mean, you get to see. Yeah,
like if you complain about our audio levels, then give us some money and we'll get new equipment. Say, we want you to get new equipment, and then we'll throw a bunch of money on Patreon.
Yeah, we'll get a producer or something who can actually
mix the stuff or do.
Yeah, we can mix it.
We're a couple of knuckleheads recording with our audio gear in our offices.
It's me. It's me going back, taking Frank's audio and my audio, meshing them together as best we can to make it sound like we're all in the same room. And it's just give us a break. Okay.
But I am no longer looking at YouTube comments for the CreatureGeek.
I think that's good. That's good practice anyway. You shouldn't look at them anyway.
After being on Face Off, I grew a really, really thick skin. So it doesn't like the YouTube comments don't get me down. Like, that doesn't ever affect me. But a lot of times I kind of use it as a litmus for like where things are. Like, if it's a lot of people that are just hating, it's like, oh, maybe there's something wrong. But like after looking at YouTube comments for this and then looking at YouTube comments for other podcasts, oh, you guys are nuts. Like, if you can't hear it, then turn the volume up or something, or get better headphones. I don't know. Like, don't go somewhere that's loud.
Don't listen to where loud plays or something.
I don't know. I mean, 9 times out of 10 people are okay, and I think our audio mix is okay enough. Like, whatever. This isn't a radio station.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean,
So anyways,
you're
welcome for getting free video on a free podcast, and if you like it, you can put a little bit in a tip jar called Patreon.
Yeah, this is a good segue into Patreon.
We have to give our thank yous for Patreon, which I pulled them up.
Patreon.com/CreatureGeek. And here are our patrons that we're thanking for this show.
April contributors. We got Donato Sinico, Charles Babbage, Russell Young, Brian Warner. Oh, that's my cousin. Raymond Stanek, Sarah Thompson, Gareth Irwin, Ricardo Murillo, Simon Hollick, Gerard Libby, and Mark Sesman. So those are the people that kicked in April, and this is our last one of this round. So
yes,
the next one will be the May contributors.
And
then our badasses, the co-executive producer level. Jason Moore. Was it Jason that was at Monsterpalooza?
I think so. I don't remember. I think it was. If you have to remind us, please.
Yeah, Jason. Don't hate me if I. Yeah, it was one of these three. It wasn't Matthew Pickever because he's in England.
Right, he's in England.
And then there's Eric Seglum. We love you guys.
I think it was Jason. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Jason because you drew the picture for him.
I did. I drew another one. I drew another Creature Geek avatar for our not our one female listener, but Sarah Thompson. I drew her as Velma from Scooby Doo, which was really fun.
Awesome! I didn't know that my cousin kicked in on this. That's kind of nice. Brian Warner. He has a company in Ohio. I think you met him once.
Maybe.
He does animatronics for like the haunt industry and stuff. And recently he started doing all these escape rooms. So he's been like programming all the lights and mechanics and stuff like that to do these escape room things. You ever seen those? You ever go to escape room?
I have not.
You go there with a bunch of people and they lock you in a room and you have to like find all the clues to like unlock things and then doors open and lights, like all these things. It's like puzzle rooms or something like that.
Well,
like,
that's kind of cool. Where were those are in haunts and stuff?
They're not in haunts. They're just like they're popping up all over the place. I went to one in San Diego where it was like an art heist had happened, and so you had to like put these clues together like with certain paintings and stuff to like undo these combinations of these locks to get another set of clues. And
wow, that sounds really cool.
So was it opens up and you have to like walk into this other room and get other clues. And
so was it sort of like a murder mystery sort of night thing?
Kind of, but it's just like 6 or 8 people locked in a room and you have an hour to solve all the little puzzles and then get out of the door.
Or what happens if you don't do it?
Then you lose. Then you're a loser.
They don't let you out.
No, they let you out, and then they point out where you did everything wrong, and you go, "Oh, I'm an idiot." But everyone that I've gone in, usually they have like a minimum people, like you need to have 6 people. So if it's just 3 of you, then they're gonna team you up with 3 people you don't know. So find out what the minimums are and get all of your friends together, so you it's all your buddies.
That's really cool. My wife would really like that. They sound
kind of cheesy, but they're really fun.
No. I think my wife would like that. She loves puzzles, so the fact that it's a real life puzzle. Brian, if you're listening to this show, send me an email. I'd like to know more about that. That sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure if you like Google like Puzzle Room Cleveland or something like that.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're pretty neat.
Yeah. So, have you gotten your rant out, Frank? Are you?
Yeah. I just big companies, accountants at big companies that set up the accounting print, the procedures.
Yeah.
Like, you got to remember, like, we're little guys. Like, I can't fathom how any freelancer ever accepts like a 60-day net. Like, to wait 60 days to get paid for anything that you do is fucking insane. Like, that's horrible.
You know what? I got to tell you, I did that recently when I was working on a comic book I did those terms only because I was able to work on a comic book. It was like the first time I thought, well, maybe this is just the way they work. But it was really cool because I got another gig and then they turned it over to 30. So I was like, oh, okay, well, this is cool. So it was, so I took a 60-day.
Yeah, but even 30 sucks. Like when do you go somewhere you're like, hey, I want to buy lunch, but I'll pay you in a month. Usually landlord, I know you're going to let me live here, but I'm going to give you rent in 60 days.
I understand. Yeah, I know. Sometimes though, if you gotta do some of that stuff to kind of get your foot in the door. When you
I get it.
Yeah.
But whoever's like, decreeing this stuff, like, they should.
It should always be at least.
It's not nice.
It should be like 15-day. It should be 15
like 2 weeks. I get I get it that they have a lot of things that come in. They only cut checks once a week, probably. Like, 2 weeks is okay, and then a couple of days to mail it. You got to find the guy. You got to track down the guy that has to sign everything. Fine, 2 weeks. I don't care.
Yeah.
But
no, I've had some really great clients who paid in like 3. So it's just really kind of. It's just up in the air. Maybe if we have any accountant listeners, they can explain to us why these things have to happen like that.
Well, I comprehend from the other side of the ball game. Like, you have an accounting department, and they have to make sure that the invoices that are coming in have an attached PO, and so they have to reference stuff, and they have to cut these checks. And a lot of banks don't let you give out money on the same day. Like, banks have this like checks and balances period, so that takes a couple of days, and then and once they get the checks all cut, then somebody's got to sign them and they got to get approved and blah blah blah. So I understand a week or 2 weeks or 5 days, or like I get it, but
So I guess the message to larger companies is don't screw the little guy.
No,
don't screw the little guy.
It's dishearting, and
you're taking food out of people's mouths. Yeah, you're taking food out of people's mouths.
Not nice. Big companies, not nice.
Literally.
But yeah, I mean everything's fine. Like, now that I'm all caught up, I usually try and keep a slush in the account so that when I have these things, like, I'm not, screwed like I just recently was. But I just moved shops, and that ate up all of my slush.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm finally caught up.
I understand. I understand.
Whatever.
This will be a good time. So you're busy. This will be a good time for me to say if you're looking for an artist, look me up. LenPeralta.com.
Well, one of our Creature Geek guests hired you.
That's right. Yeah.
Rick Lazzarini hired you for a project last year that you still can't talk about.
I can't talk about it, but I will be able to talk about it later this summer, hopefully. So we'll be sharing that stuff. And then that's funny. I was going to mention Rick at the top of the show because if you do not follow Rick Lazzarini on Facebook, become his friend, because his little rants about
his rants are 1,000 times more epic than mine. Like he puts clients on blast.
He does.
When they like, hey, we want an animal for free. Do you have something on the shelf by any chance? Oh, his stuff is hilarious.
It's hilarious to hear him talk about it because he's been through the ringer so many times. It's like there's no way.
It makes my rants look like nothing.
So definitely look up Rick Lazzarini on Facebook, and his rants about just client work are hilarious. They're worth the price of admission, which of course is nothing.
Hey, everybody, all of this is free.
It's all free. You just get it. Free. It's up to you. It's up to you.
Lazzarini needs a tip jar. We need to give Lazzarini a Patreon so when people like his little rants, he could tip. I wish that they changed the name of Patreon to Tip Jar. Is there a website called Tip Jar?
There probably is. I'm sure.
Probably is.
Because
that's how I don't know. I think that's what it is. Less like baggy sounding.
So patreon.com/CreatureGeek, and I think that's gonna do
enough ranting for today. Yeah, we'll be back to regularly scheduled real guests that have real things to say.
Yeah.
Next week.
And if you do like the show, by all means, give us a couple dollars. Yeah, exactly. You can find out more
look
about
both ways before crossing the street. Safety never takes a vacation.
I don't take I haven't taken a vacation in years.
Took one.
That's why we need the tip jar. FrankIppolito.com or LenPeralta.com. We're also Frank Ippolito and Len Peralta, respectively, on Twitter. Thanks to Tested.com for giving this little place a free little home. And
free? Tested doesn't pay us.
They don't pay us.
We're free to Tested.
We're free to Tested. So thank you very much for giving us that platform, Tested.com. You can also go to our blog, CreatureGeek.com. And
we got Facebook.
We have the Facebook as well. Yeah, look us up on Facebook. And if you want to write me, Len at CreatureGeek or Frank at CreatureGeek, you can write to him, but he won't write to you.
I have too many things to
He has too many things to do. Yeah, you know what? I am updating the Patreon when I can, and I'm trying to update our website when I can. So if it's not there right away, it's only because I'm working on pretty much different things.
You can't complain because it's free.
It's all free.
It's all free.
It's all free. The Patreon, I can see why you would be a little bit upset that you weren't getting like information. But I'll get better about it. Yeah, I'm working on my own Patreon.
Hey, you have a Kickstarter going on.
I do. Yes. Well, right now it's going to be ending very, very soon. I think by the time this episode airs, it's going to be very, very close to ending. But yes, I'll put a little plug it.
Plug it right now. Go.
Go to Kickstarter.com. Look up Renfest. That's REN Fest. FEST. It's the new project starring Mystery Science Theater's Trace Beaulieu and Mary Jo Pell and Dave Gruber Allen from Freaks and Geeks. It's Mystery Science Theater, Freaks and Geeks. They're doing think of it as The Office or Parks and Rec at a Renfest. It's funding right now. Hopefully by this time we've made our quota. If not, go there, throw us a couple bucks, put us over the top. We'd love to be able to make that project. Yeah. So there you go. And that's it. That's this episode of Creature Geek. We will see you, and definitely see you, and you'll hear us on the next episode coming up next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.